Welcome to the Emisarios Unidos de Luz channel. If you enjoy this near-death experience story, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Now let's start with the story. Upon receiving a cancer diagnosis, I chose to treat my illness with natural therapies, believing they would yield greater success. Resorting to natural treatments seemed to help at first, but some time after receiving a treatment, my condition would take a turn for the worse, and 4 years after the initial diagnosis, my health began to rapidly deteriorate. Believing that there was still hope for me, I began to receive treatment from an Ayurvedic doctor in India, and through his assistance, I began to feel much better. My family and friends remained skeptical, however, imploring me to be examined by a doctor of conventional medicine. Relenting to their supplications, I consulted a medical practitioner of traditional Western medicine, who, after examining my MRI scans, informed me that I had only 3 months to live. Heartbroken by his words, my health rapidly deteriorated once again, and I eventually fell into a coma, which I wasn't expected to wake from. In my unconscious state, I left my body and entered the realm of spirit. In my spirit body, I felt incredibly alive, light, and free, yet no less aware of the presence of my family members surrounding my inanimate physical body, as well as the doctor, who was explaining to them that I was in my final hours. As I hovered above my body, I began to wonder about my essential nature, realizing that my body was little more than a garment I wore to experience physical life and discarded upon entering the spirit world, a realm where I could multi-locate and focus on multiple conversations simultaneously. Even in that state of heightened awareness, I felt my consciousness expand to the point where I became aware of the ever-present host of light beings surrounding me, while simultaneously becoming less aware of the physical world as a consequence of that expansion. A close friend who had died 2 years earlier, along with my father, who had passed away 10 years prior, were among the light beings present to greet and welcome me. As I greeted my father, the energy of our essences commingled, and through that exchange, I received all he wished to communicate. Despite our known clashes in the physical realm, as our essences melded in that space of boundless peace, I sensed only unconditional love emanating from him. In experiencing life from the perspective of essence, I realized that essence, unbound by the constraints of time, is free to experience past, present, and future at will. From this perspective, the perceived sequentiality we imagine governs our incarnate lifetimes, and even the linearity of events within a single life, is an illusion that emerges as a consequence of experiencing life through a physical body. It was in fact from such an unconstrained vantage point that I was able to see, via a series of images, moments from my past lives shared with my husband, as well as scenes of a future we would create together. In being able to connect at will with the corporeal experience of any incarnation, regardless of whether, through our limited human perception, we consider that incarnation to be a past, present, or future life, I was able to access the experiential knowledge gained from all incarnations, focusing in particular upon knowledge relevant to the experiences of my current lifetime. It was through the experience of life in my form as essence that my ideas about karma, my understanding of spirituality, and my perception of the nature of reality have since been transformed. From the vantage point of life in the spirit, I was able to see with utmost clarity the error in my thinking that culminated in the experience of a debilitating and life-threatening condition. With the utter clarity that the experience of life as essence bestows, I was able to see that my compulsion to please God through performing good works was, in fact, an unwitting affirmation of my belief that I was not acceptable to God for shirking such a responsibility, thereby denying the truth that we are no less than divine essence, divine love, or divine consciousness, and by virtue of our divine origin or core, we cannot, therefore, be unacceptable to God. From the vantage point of essence, I was privy to the knowledge that my soul's purpose for my current incarnation was, in fact, to express my spirit or higher being freely and unencumbered by judgments based on flawed beliefs. I realized that by acting upon my limiting beliefs, either through choice or coercion, I had forgotten my sole purpose, and that the cancer was a manifestation arising from the discord between those limiting beliefs I claimed as my own and the mandates of spirit or essence. There, in the realm of spirit, my higher self wanted my human self to realize that I didn't incarnate on earth to succumb to fear, to repress the truth of my core edging at my awareness, or to live to please other people. In that realm of unlimited love, peace, and understanding, I, as a being of divine essence, embraced the knowledge that I was much more powerful than I, as a human, had given myself credit for. In the realm of spirit, I had a life review, however, unlike the typical life review, mine was a review of the tapestry woven by my soul over multiple lives. During the life review, I could see the journey of my soul over every lifetime it had lived and even the experiences between those lifetimes. In the life review, I saw how my life contributed to the soul's journey as a whole. During my life review, I was able to connect with the lives of anyone who I turned my attention to and to view, with the eyes of pure love and compassion, the dynamics of our past interactions and of our relationship in the present. Immersed in unconditional and boundless love, I wanted to remain in that realm forever, and at first I told myself that I wasn't going to return. Upon receiving the knowledge that because my husband's sole purpose was intertwined with mine, that if I were to remain in spirit, he too would cross over, and not wanting his life to end prematurely, I knew that I would eventually have to return. It was conveyed to me by my guides in the realm of divine love that he and I both had an important purpose for which we incarnated on earth, a purpose that remained yet unfulfilled. Although the nature of that purpose remained a mystery, I knew that, in some capacity, my life was to be one of service, one that honored both my needs and those of my physical body without requiring me to compromise my needs, much less martyr myself for the needs of others, as I had done in the past by seeing God in everyone else's eyes but my own. Embracing a much more expansive understanding of myself and of life, I felt the call to return to my life in the physical. Now that you know the truth of who you really are, go back and live your life fearlessly, my father communicated in parting. From his parting words, I understood that he wanted me to know that life was about to begin a new chapter, a chapter in which my body would function in perfect health. Moments later, I began to open my eyes in my physical body, but even though I was once again fused with it, I felt as though I was straddling worlds. As I looked upon the faces of my loved ones in the hospital room, I explained to them that I had met with my father and that he had conveyed to me that I was going to be okay. Even though my family thought I was delirious, they were relieved and elated that I had come out of the coma I had been in for the past 4 months. When the doctor left the room, I asked my family if he was the one who had said I wouldn't even make it through the night. He said as much, but near the nurse's station, they confirmed. Life in my body after the NDE wasn't easy, even though the very large tumors shrank rapidly. Miraculously, after 3 weeks, my body was cancer-free, as confirmed by the doctors, who, after analyzing the MRIs, couldn't find a trace of cancer. Despite their astonishment, the doctors remained unaffected by my assertion that my healing was the result of a spiritual experience and awakening I underwent while comatose. Instead, they kept wondering whether they had misdiagnosed my condition, completely ignoring the fact that they had been submitting me to tests for several years prior. Despite their confusion, I was utterly clear about the spiritual, mental, and emotional transformation that sponsored my return to health. Resolute in my convictions concerning the cause and nature of my healing, I spoke to everyone I knew about my NDE and the insights I gained regarding the nature of reality in the realm of unconditional love. While romanticizing how my words would be received, I explained to all who would listen how we, as divine beings, are, in our essential nature, spirit living a human life, and as such, we are more powerful than we've been led to believe or than we would give ourselves credit for. Although I expected some resistance to my ideas, I was somewhat shocked that people would so readily and adamantly reject them, even going as far as to dismiss me as a crazy person. Those skeptics would go on to say that my so-called miraculous cure was nothing more than a spontaneous remission, and that I was simply one of the lucky ones. Neither the medical community nor those entrenched in the orthodox paradigms of sickness and treatment were open to hearing what I had to say, and I learned very quickly to be careful about whom I shared my story and ideas with. Receiving the embittered reactions of those resigned hearts didn't, however, quell my desire to share my NDE and all that I had learned during that experience. Even after going through a period of silence and being closed off about my experience, the person I am today is one who, even in the face of skepticism, is willing to trust the process, a person who believes in a non-physical world of entities that guide us in the right direction. It was through receiving such guidance that I began sharing my story through a website dedicated to near-death experiences. After sharing my experience on that website, I received a call from an oncologist in California who asked for my permission to go to the hospital where I spent those 4 months in a coma to review my medical records. "Whichever way you look at it, you should be dead," he said as he reviewed my records. The same doctor encouraged me to write a book about my experience, and persuaded me to share my story on the radio. Then, when a well-known author discovered my story, it exploded worldwide. I see that part of my life's purpose, and part of the reason why I returned to my life on Earth, is to share my story with the hope that it inspires people to live fearlessly and in harmony with their higher selves. Even the best of us deny ourselves, to some degree, our right to fulfill the purpose for which we incarnated on Earth. In concluding my account, I would say that you have nothing to fear and that you are a being much greater than you imagine yourself to be. When you have a choice to make, choose from a place of love, not from a place of fear. Ask yourself, what do you love to do? What makes your heart sing?